My Lords, I declare my position as Vice President of the Local Government Association, and I thank the noble lady Baroness Warwick of Undercliff for securing this debate, which has been so well inscribed and so well populated by noble lords. But when we're talking about housing policy, what's really noticeable is that the government focus is on supply. For the Green Party, the focus is on what kind of homes do the homeless need and how will they get them. For we can all agree that to fix the current crisis of homelessness is a crucial priority for our society. That's not just the people we see right here on our doorstep, on the streets and in the tube stations of Westminster, sleeping increasingly uncomfortably and at a danger to themselves as winter draws in. Also, and what damage is this doing, the families in temporary accommodation. For England, at the highest level since records began 22 years ago, a 15% increase in the year to June. And also the young and not so young people forced to rent a room in overcrowded shared housing, inadequately housed with no realistic hope of future improvement. Reluctantly tolerated couch surfers, households forced to squeeze into homes, which there are several of them. Yet when we hear the government talking about housing, the focus is always on house building. The milestone Sir Keir Starmer set out with much fanfare this morning was building 1.5 million homes. The talk was about foisting homes on unwilling communities with planning so-called reform, despite the fact that a third of homes receiving planning consent are not being built. That means more than 1 million approvals handed down since 2015 have not resulted in homes. Had all of those homes that were granted planning permission been built, the government would have hit the target of 300,000 new homes a year in 8 out of the past 10 years. So why are they not being built? Well, they're mostly large-scale schemes of a handful of mass-market developers whose entire aim, whose legal responsibility for their directors, is to maximise profit. Their responsibility is not to build homes. And what generally makes the most profit? So-called executive homes, often freestanding and wasteful of the scarce resource of land, built to poor energy efficiency standard, on greenfield sites without public transport provision, and feeding into already congested roads. What are those going to do for the homeless people on our streets, the families crowded horribly into B&Bs without housing facilities, the young people who've moved back home to the family for want of a rental deposit? The government is applying the theory that suitable housing will eventually trickle down to those who need a decent, secure, affordable place to live. But just as trickle-down economics has been a total failure, so is trickle-down housing policy. We need to build or repurpose and refurbish genuinely affordable, high-quality homes close to transport and other facilities that meet the needs of people, rather than focus on the profit for the market. And of course, relying on an under-regulated, non-competitive monopoly in the private sector to supply housing has not just resulted in a failure of housing numbers. The Grenfell tragedy exposed in a huge disaster the deadly failure of quality and safety. End Our Cladding Scandal, the campaign group, estimates that 600,000 people in Britain still live in homes at heightened risk of a fatal fire, and 3 million own homes that they can't sell for fire safety reasons. Since Grenfell, more than 15,000 people have been forced to move out of their homes indefinitely. Now, what's the story behind that? I go to an account from James Meek in the London Review of Books of the now infamous Skyline Chambers in Manchester. The building was completed in 2007 by a company called Space Developments UK that was then built by the multinational Irish-based house builder McKinney in 2000, a few years later. When it went down in the financial crash, Skyline was picked up from the creditors by Wallace, a company that is owned by an Italian investor, sometimes styled Count de Vignolo in official documents. It's a Cambridge-based network of companies that's owned by a Gibraltar-registered company, Perseverance Limited, which in turn is owned by a Guernsey-registered Hortville trustees. That's what's supposed to be supplying housing. What do we need to do to tackle homelessness, to reshape our housing policy, our society, so that it works for people and planet, rather than human needs and planetary essentials being ground down by the demand for profit? We need to shift our understanding to housing primarily as homes, affordable, secure, quality places for people to live, rather than as simply financial assets. We need to tackle the financialisation of our housing supply, as we need to tackle the financialisation of our public services, of our whole economy. Now, the government is starting just a little to demonstrate that it realises these old 20th century economic models are not working. In Sukhia's speech this morning, we saw something of a shift that, as previewed by Politico's London Playbook, starting to realise that just talking about growth provokes the question, but who is it for? Who benefits from this growth? The same question must be asked about our housing supply.